You ever feel like the world ends with a whisper, not a bang? We didn't hear the impact. Not at first. No sirens, no countdown. Just a news blip one morning while I was sipping gas station coffee in a half-warm Toyota, the sun barely poking up over the New Mexico hills. I remember the moment like it was carved into my brain. The radio stuttered mid-song and switched to an emergency alert. No screeching tones, just a calm voice with an edge of steel. This is an emergency notification from NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office. An object of interest, initially classified as 2025 QZ1, is now confirmed on a potential Earth intercept course. Projected impact, southwestern United States. Exact location and time forthcoming. Then it cut off. Back to regular programming, just like that. I blinked at the dash. That had to be a mistake, right? I called it in to my wife, Lena. She was at home with our daughter, Abby. I made a joke, something about Bruce Willis being busy. She didn't laugh. She just said, "Come home, now." That was August 3rd. 3 days later, the sky caught fire. We lived near Gallup, New Mexico. Not quite desert wasteland, but close enough you could smell the dust in your sheets. Lena worked part-time at a dental office. I was a diesel mechanic, mostly doing mobile work out near the oil fields and interstate. We were normal, not preppers, not doomsday types. Just trying to make a decent life for our daughter. So when NASA held the first press conference that afternoon, I watched with a bowl of cereal and a half smile, thinking they'd say it was all a big misunderstanding. They didn't. A man in a suit, tight-lipped and twitchy, stood at the podium. Behind him, a giant screen showed a blurry white dot surrounded by orbital paths and warning cones. The object is approximately 1.2 kilometers in diameter and composed primarily of silicate and nickel iron. Based on its trajectory and current velocity, 26 kilometers per second, it is projected to impact within the continental United States on August 6th at approximately 2:43 p.m. Mountain Time. He cleared his throat. Impact zone ranges from southern Utah to the Mexican border, likely in a sparsely populated area. We expect severe atmospheric consequences, including thermal radiation, seismic shock waves, and particulate dispersal. Someone asked if this was planet killer territory. The guy stiffened. Not extinction level, no, but regionally devastating. It was the way he said it, like regionally meant anyone within a few hundred miles. By that evening, the grocery store was cleaned out. Bottled water, batteries, duct tape, gone. Gas lines stretched around the block. The Air Force grounded civilian flights, and National Guard convoys rolled through town with blackout trucks and mobile comms units. I made a list that night. Not a bucket list. A survival list. We packed everything we could in the garage. Tools, fuel cans, tarps, plywood. I went out and bought plastic sheeting, industrial respirators, and a dozen rolls of contractor tape from the only hardware store that hadn't been picked clean. The manager gave me a look. I didn't care. Lena sealed up the house. We pulled Abby out of school early the next day. Nobody argued. The teachers had stopped showing up anyway. We stayed glued to the updates. but each one only made things worse. NASA's impact predictions started to shrink, narrowing from southwest U.S. to southern Nevada or northern Arizona. They didn't have exact coordinates. The asteroid's tumble and the atmosphere's density made the final path too chaotic to nail down. The one thing they knew for sure, it was going to hit at full speed. No skipping off the atmosphere, no heroic intercepts. The desert was going to take the blow, and we were too damn close. August 6th. The morning was too quiet, not eerie, just muted, like the sky itself was holding its breath. The birds were gone, no insects, even the wind had stopped. The blackout started around 10 a.m. Power just died. No cell service, no radio, not even static. I ran outside and looked up. The sun was a pale blur through a haze of thin clouds, and something deeper shimmered behind it. High-altitude contrails? Maybe. Or maybe debris. We couldn't tell. I helped Lena tape the last plastic sheet over the windows. Abby sat curled on the floor in her bedroom, cradling her stuffed koala. She was 7, too young to understand extinction, but old enough to know something was wrong. At 2:30 p.m., we huddled in the hallway. No windows, thickest walls. I'd reinforced them with spare wood and insulation. It wasn't a bunker, but it was the best we had. 2:42 p.m. Nothing. 2:43 p.m. Still nothing. I held Lena's hand so tight she winced. The air buzzed. It wasn't a sound, more like pressure. My eardrums popped. Abby whimpered. Then a flash. Not outside, not like lightning. It came through the walls. A white-hot pulse, silent but blinding. My eyes went blind for a second. Then came the rumble. It didn't build gradually. It just was. A sound like the earth splitting open, deep and endless. The house buckled. The drywall cracked down the hall. Bookshelves fell. Windows burst in distant rooms. Then the heat hit. It wasn't fire. It was like opening an oven that stretched for miles. The air cooked. I could feel my skin dry out in seconds, like all the moisture had been sucked away. Dust poured in through every gap, fine, gritty, metallic. We stayed in that hallway for hours. When the shaking stopped and the heat faded, I stepped outside. The horizon looked like a black wound. A mushroom cloud, but wider, flatter. It stretched for miles, blotting out the sun. Beneath it, a churning curtain of reddish-gray fog rolled east, like a living thing. I didn't know it then, but that was the silicate vapor cloud, what they now call glassfall. The asteroid had struck somewhere west of Flagstaff, Arizona, right in the dead center of the desert, but the crater was 30 miles wide. Everything nearby was vaporized. We were nearly 300 miles away, and we were still in danger. Night fell, but the sky didn't get dark. It glowed, sickly orange, flickering with high-altitude lightning. Every flash backlit the plume rolling toward us. I covered our vents and started the generator, just long enough to flush out the air with our filters. Then I shut it down. Lena asked me what that dust was. I didn't want to say it, but I told her the truth. That's glass, I said. What's left of the desert. Vaporized, cooling in the atmosphere. It had been superheated past 2,000 degrees and blown into the sky by the shock wave. Now it was falling as microscopic slivers, lighter than ash, sharper than razors. And it was heading our way. The first deaths came overnight. People who slept with their windows open, people who didn't seal their homes. It coated everything: clotheslines, cars, water buckets. Looked like talcum powder, but sliced like obsidian. The hospitals overflowed with lacerated lungs and bleeding eyes. But then the power grid failed entirely. Phones went dark. No ambulances. No coordination. The local hospital tried to keep running on backup generators, but they choked out after the third day. Diesel was gone. Filters were clogged with glass. Nobody had enough PPE. The ER nurses started falling. Then the doctors. We tried to help one of our neighbors, Mrs. Kerrigan, an older woman with COPD. She was coughing blood and couldn't breathe. I gave her our last backup mask. She died 2 hours later anyway. We couldn't bury her. Digging outside was suicide. So we wrapped her in tarps, sealed the seams, and laid her in the garage. I didn't sleep that night. By day 4, the entire town was a ghost zone. The dust never stopped falling. Not thick, but constant, like an invisible snow. It coated the world in a silvery sheen. And if you touched it barehanded, it left little slices in your skin. Lena got one across her palm, just from brushing off a doorknob. Our HVAC was useless. The pre-filters were black. I shut the system down before it poisoned us. After that, we relied on portable units and a jerry-rigged airlock in the front hallway, made from a camping tent and duct tape. I knew we couldn't last like this. Water would run out, food too. I started marking the days on the wall with a screwdriver. Day 5, day 6. We heard a helicopter pass overhead on day 7. It didn't land. Probably military. Probably gone forever. The worst part wasn't the fear. It was the air. You can't fight what you can't see. You can't reason with a world where breathing is a gamble. Outside, it looked calm, sunny, but the sun was wrong. Dim, yellowish red, like it was bleeding through smoke. The local radio station went quiet. The internet was a blank screen. We were alone. I opened my laptop on day 9 and wrote a message I never posted. To whoever finds this, the world didn't end in fire. It ended in dust. Shards of the earth turned against us. We didn't die in the blast. We died after, slow and scared, choking on the bones of a crater. I still have it saved, just in case. By day 10, everything tasted like metal. The bottled water, the powdered milk, even the gum I chewed to calm my nerves. It all had this dry, bitter edge to it, like the world had been lightly salted with rust. Lena tried to keep Abby entertained. Coloring books, made-up stories, shadow puppets on the hallway walls. But the girl didn't laugh anymore. Not real laughter. Not since the blast. At night, we heard movement outside. Not cars, people. Walking through the neighborhood in taped-up coats, faces wrapped in cloth or gas masks, dragging wagons or coolers or carts behind them. Looters, or maybe just desperate survivors looking for clean water. We didn't open the door. I reinforced the locks with metal brackets and shoved a dresser across the back entrance. We moved our beds into the hallway, farthest from any exterior walls, and sealed off the rest of the house. It was cramped, suffocating, but it was clean. That was the only thing that mattered now. Clean air. The glass rain wasn't like any fallout I'd ever imagined. It wasn't flakes or embers or even ash. It was nothing. Invisible. Silent. You couldn't feel it in your lungs until you tried to exhale and realized your breath came back bloody. You couldn't see it until it built up on surfaces like a fine glitter, beautiful, deadly. It sliced car tires open in a day. Ruined engine pistons, shredded HVAC intakes. And it got everywhere. Through vents, through cracks, even through keyholes, if you didn't seal them right. I spent half my waking hours checking seals, changing pre-filters, taping corners. My hands were raw and shaking by the end of each day. Lena asked what we'd do when the filters ran out. I didn't have an answer. I ventured out on day 12. Full gear, mechanics coveralls, boots duct-taped at the cuffs, gloves, goggles, a half-mask respirator with a high-efficiency particulate filter. I looked like a hazmat-wearing scarecrow. The plan was simple. Hit the Walgreens 3 blocks away. Grab any remaining meds, canned food, maybe rubbing alcohol or medical tape. Most places had been picked clean already, but I had to try. The air outside was warm. Too warm. Not fire-hot like the day of impact, but dry in a way that burned your throat even through the filter. Everything smelled like scorched plastic and ozone. Wind carried dust in low drifts across the cracked pavement. And then there was the silence. No birds, no dogs, no insects. Just the crunch of glass under my boots, like walking through sugar. I reached the pharmacy. The front windows had been smashed, but the back door was intact. I jimmied it open with a crowbar and slipped inside. The place was dead. Rows of toppled shelves, broken glass, empty boxes. Someone had lit a fire in the back, maybe trying to boil water. The ceiling was charred, but the building still stood. I found one unopened box of antibiotics behind the pharmacy counter, some painkillers, a sealed bottle of rubbing alcohol, and a roll of gauze. Jackpot. I was stuffing everything into my duffel when I heard the sound. Footsteps. Soft, hesitant, shuffling. I froze and ducked behind the counter. They came closer, one set, then 2. I peeked around the edge and saw them, 2 teenagers, maybe 17 or 18, dressed in trash bags and ski masks, carrying what looked like kitchen knives taped to broom handles. They were whispering. One pointed toward the counter. I didn't wait. I bolted through the emergency exit, kicked it open with my heel, and sprinted down the alley. Glass dust kicked up around me like powdered razors. My lungs screamed. They chased me for a block before giving up. I collapsed behind a parked van, coughing into my mask, praying I hadn't torn the seal. When I made it back to the house, Lena was crying. She thought I'd died. I almost had. The next morning, I threw up blood. Just a little, not much. A pink smear in the sink. Still enough to terrify me. I changed the mask filter and didn't tell Lena. On day 14, we got a signal. Faint, garbled, like someone whispering through sand. I was fiddling with the solar-powered emergency radio, one of those crank-handled types Lena's dad had given us years ago. I had almost given up when a voice cut through the static. To all survivors. Repeat, if you can hear this. We have clean air. Repeat, shelter zone established at... Then it broke off. I kept turning the dial, adjusting the antenna. Nothing. 2 hours later, it came back. This is Dr. Mara Klein, formerly of the Flagstaff Astrobiology Center. We've established a survivor compound in the highlands northeast of Silverton, Colorado. Clean air, power, medical. We are filtering volunteers and taking in the unexposed. If you are symptomatic, coughing blood, breathing pain, you must isolate. Bring only what you can carry. The roads are unsafe. Repeat. I stared at the speaker like it was a ghost. Silverton. That was over 200 miles away, through mountain passes, choked roads, fallen bridges, and all of it under a constant rain of invisible death. Lena touched my shoulder. We have to try. We spent the next day packing. Canned food, water, portable air canisters, every filter we had left. I tore apart the HVAC to salvage the HEPA cores and used them to reinforce our masks. Abby would ride in a wheeled plastic storage bin, retrofitted with 2 sealed breathing hoses and lined with foam. Our makeshift mobile bubble. It was insane. But staying was suicide. We said goodbye to the house like it was a dying relative. Lena took one last photo of the hallway, our little cocoon of safety, before sealing the door behind us. At dawn on day 16, we left. The road out of town was buried under dust. I drove slow, no more than 15 mph, with the wipers on and headlights dim. The engine rattled every time the intake filter strained, and I had to stop twice to blow it out with a can of compressed air. We saw wrecks. A pickup flipped in a ditch. A delivery truck jackknifed across the highway. Blackened skeletons of cars where people had tried to outrun the blast. At a gas station near Farmington, we found a group of people in surgical masks sitting around a campfire made of broken doors. One man raised a hand. We didn't stop. Abby stayed quiet in her plastic cocoon, eyes wide and unblinking. I kept the car sealed as best I could, but even so, I saw glitter on the dash. Lena didn't say anything, but I saw her wipe blood from her nose when she thought I wasn't looking. By nightfall, we reached Durango. The town was empty. Not abandoned, just evacuated. The grocery store windows were intact. Signs taped to the doors read, "Taken, move on." The air was thinner here, but the glitter still hung in it, swirling like evil snow. We broke into a sporting goods store and found 3 rolls of mylar sheeting and 2 unused water filters. I also found a rifle. .308 bolt action. 4 rounds in the box. I took it. That night, we camped in a concrete underpass lined with foam and sealed with plastic. We slept in shifts. Every noise felt like the start of something worse. At 3 a.m., I heard a woman screaming far away. Then a gunshot. Then silence. Day 17. The air was clearer in the mountains. Fewer particles, less dust. But it didn't mean we were safe. We passed a school bus half buried in gravel, its windows shattered, The words "help us" spray painted across the roof. No one inside, just dry blood on the seats. The signal from the Silverton group came through stronger around midday. They gave GPS coordinates. They repeated the rules. Symptomatic survivors would not be allowed entry. Abby started coughing after lunch, just once, but it was enough to send my heart into freefall. Lena didn't react. She just held our daughter tighter and looked away. That night, the wind picked up. It howled through the valleys, carrying with it a new wave of dust. This time, it wasn't invisible. It shimmered in the moonlight. The microglass had made it to the highlands. The safe zone was closing. We had to reach Silverton by dawn, or die trying. We hit the old mining road at 4:12 a.m. No lights, no guardrails, just gravel and switchbacks curling up the cliffs like veins of a dying animal. The wind shrieked outside the car, and every turn made the tires slip just a little. Lena kept glancing back at Abby in her plastic bin. I could see moisture beading on the inside of the clear wall, condensation from her breath. Or a fever. She was sweating, quiet, too quiet. "I think she's just hot," Lena whispered, even though I hadn't said anything. "She hasn't coughed again." But we both knew what that meant. One cough was enough. About 6 miles outside Silverton, the road turned to rubble. Literally. A rock slide had buried half the pass, and what remained was pockmarked with holes and sloped toward a sheer drop on one side. I stopped the car, let the engine idle. "We walk," I said. Lena didn't argue. We sealed Abby's mobile pod with its final layer of sheeting, strapped our packs, and started climbing. The mountain air was thin, like breathing through a plastic bag. Every step sent up dust, just enough to shimmer in our headlamps. We moved fast, not because we wanted to. Because behind us, in the distance, we heard engines. Not 1, 3, maybe 4, growling in the night. I don't know who they were. Scavengers, desperate families, bandits. But they were coming fast, and they had gas. We saw their headlights cut through the pass like fireflies hunting for prey. I killed our lights and yanked Lena off the trail. We crouched behind a rock face, barely daring to breathe. Abby whimpered inside her case. The convoy rumbled past us. 3 off-road trucks, each rigged with makeshift armor and steel mesh over the windows. One had a flamethrower strapped to the roof. Another dragged a trailer filled with cages. Empty ones. They weren't just looking for food. They were looking for people. As soon as they passed, we bolted. Sunrise broke like a blood smear across the ridgeline. And then, finally, we saw it. The compound. A small outpost of Quonset huts and tents nestled in a valley of pine and rock. A tall tower flew a bright yellow flag with a black circle. One word stenciled across it in blocky font. Breathe. I wanted to fall to my knees. Instead, I pulled Lena close. We made it. The guards were armed. No uniforms, just patched together military gear and gas masks that looked homemade but effective. They waved us forward with gloved hands and scanned us with handheld meters. We waited, silent. Then one of them held up a hand. "Coughing?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, not me, not my wife." The other guard looked at the case. "And the child?" "She had a fever, not a cough. Could be stress." The man tapped the device. "Elevated CO2 and moisture in the pod. Possible early onset." Lena stepped forward. "Please, she's 3. She's been inside that thing since Farmington. She's clean. We're clean." The guards looked at each other. One of them nodded. "Medical screening," he said. "Come with us." The inside of the compound felt surreal. Everything was green, not literal grass, but tarps, plastic barriers, awnings, an attempt to mimic nature, to break the gray monotony of apocalypse. The air smelled like ozone and alcohol, and it was cold, colder than outside. A woman in a lab coat approached, mid-40s, dark hair, pale eyes. She didn't smile. "I'm Dr. Mara Klein," she said. "You heard our broadcast?" I nodded. She looked at Abby's pod. "How long has she been enclosed?" 2.5 days, I said. "We had filters, masking. She's been isolated." "She's running a fever," Lena said, "just from the heat." Dr. Klein's expression didn't change. "Come," she said. "We'll scan her." The examination room was spotless, sealed, a negative pressure chamber with soft lighting and a humming airlock. They had real doctors, real tech, even an MRI unit. Abby was removed from the pod and placed into a plastic isolation cot. They took her vitals, blood samples, a breath sample, and ran a biofluorometric scan. Then they asked us to wait. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, Dr. Klein returned with a single page of results. "She's positive," she said. Lena gasped. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. "It's early," Klein added. "Low particle saturation. No permanent lung damage yet. If we quarantine her immediately and begin internal lavage treatments, we may be able to stop it." "Quarantine?" Lena asked. "How long?" 2 weeks. You won't be allowed in, not physically. She'll be monitored by staff. You can speak to her through the glass." "And if we don't agree?" I asked. Dr. Klein's face hardened. "She can't stay in general population. She will be turned away. There are others here, unexposed. Children, elderly. We can't risk them." Lena didn't hesitate. "We'll do it." I nodded. I didn't trust this place, not yet. But if Abby had even a chance of survival, it was worth everything. The next 2 days blurred together. We were decontaminated, assigned cots in the guest sector, issued ration cards and new filtration masks. We met other survivors. An elderly couple from Santa Fe, a nurse from Albuquerque, 2 brothers who'd made it all the way from El Paso. Each had a story. Each had seen death. But they were alive. And that gave us hope. Abby's room had a clear partition, like a zoo enclosure for someone far too precious for this broken world. Nurses fed her through sealed compartments. Monitors tracked every heartbeat. She was so small in that room, so alone. We spoke to her every hour, sang lullabies through the intercom, read books, told her she was brave. She smiled, But she also coughed. Every night. Short, sharp, like something was trying to claw its way out. On day 21, we heard an explosion. Everyone ran outside. One of the bandit trucks, those trucks, had found the perimeter, tried to break through the supply gate. They didn't make it far. The compound had tripwires, remote turrets, defensive charges. When the dust settled, 3 men were dead. One was still breathing, barely. They dragged him inside. He was coughing blood. I saw Dr. Klein argue with the guards, heard snippets. Not immune. Already too far gone. We can't start helping them now. She looked up and saw me. That night, I found a note under her cot. Just 4 words. It won't hold forever. I showed Lena. She didn't say anything, just held my hand tight enough to hurt. Abby was still alive, still fighting. But outside the walls, the air was thicker, glittering again. The glass rain had found us, even here. Silverton wasn't safe anymore, and our time was running out. We should have left that night. We should have taken Abby and run into the dark, no matter the cost. But we didn't. Because we were so damn tired. 3 days after the attack, they began sealing sectors of the compound. Not quarantines, closures. Entire wings of the shelter repurposed as storage or shut down completely. Food rations were cut in half. Water access was restricted to 90 seconds per person, per shift. A whisper started spreading. The air is changing. I asked one of the nurses what that meant. She just said, "We're losing the filters." Every air recycler in the compound ran on a closed-loop HEPA ultrafiltration system, designed to remove particles as small as 0.1 microns, including viral matter, pollen, and, in theory, microglass. But they weren't made for this. The strain from continuous 24/7 operation, combined with power issues and the sheer density of airborne microglass, had overwhelmed the system. You can only backflush filters so many times, Dr. Klein told us quietly. We have 10 remaining. After that, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. That night, one of the guests died in his sleep. His name was Darrow, mid-50s, mechanic from Holbrook, never showed symptoms. They found blood on his pillow and glass in his lungs. The official cause? Fatigue-related respiratory failure. Bullshit. Lena started coughing the next morning. It was dry at first, just a tickle. She tried to hide it, covered her mouth, forced a smile, blamed it on the recycled air. But I saw it. The pink in her spit. The widening of her eyes. I could breathe. "I'm fine," she whispered that night, curled in her cot under threadbare blankets. "It's not what you think. I've been running on fumes. I'll be better tomorrow." "You can't go to medbay," I said. "You know what they'll do." She nodded. "I won't." Abby improved. Her cough vanished. The fever broke. She was smiling again, pressing her little hands to the glass wall as we read her bedtime stories through the speaker. Dr. Klein approached me later and said, "She's clear. We're moving her to post-recovery." I asked if we could stay with her. She hesitated. Then, soon. But her eyes told a different story. The bandit problem didn't go away. In fact, it got worse. They started showing up at the perimeter every night, blasting speakers, revving engines, using mirrors to blind the guard posts. Sometimes they fired shots into the outer wall just to rattle us. Sometimes they called out names. I don't know how they got them, but they knew who was inside. They knew about us. On day 29, one of the compound's own guards opened the eastern gate at 3 a.m. The bandits poured in. The breach was contained, barely. 6 dead, 17 wounded, 2 children taken. It broke something in everyone. Hope turned to panic. Panic turned to violence. That night, someone set fire to the communications tent. We had no more radio. No more outside contact. We were alone. Lena's cough got worse. She was hiding it well, only coughing into her pillow, biting down on a scrap of cloth to muffle the sound. But I could see the glass in her eyes, the shimmer in her breath. She was deteriorating. I begged her to go to Dr. Klein. She refused. "They'll lock me in a box and sedate me," she whispered. "I won't die like that. I'd rather be with you." So we made a plan. We would leave. Not tonight, not in a panic, but soon. We began preparing. I mapped old mining tunnels under the mountain, routes that would bypass the bandit camps. Dr. Klein gave me a key to Abby's quarantine wing. She didn't say a word, just pressed it into my palm and looked away. And Lena, she recorded messages. For Abby, 20 of them. One for every birthday, one for every heartbreak, one for when she found out the truth. On day 32, I woke up and she was gone. No note, no sound. Just gone. I found her in the airlock. She'd removed her mask and opened the inner seal. She wanted to speed it up, to finish on her terms. But she was still alive. I dragged her back inside. She fought me the whole time, crying, begging me to let her go. "I won't make it through the mountains," she whispered. "Don't let Abby see me die." I held her all night. Dr. Klein sedated her the next morning and placed her in isolation. She wouldn't last more than 2 days. Abby didn't know. I lied and told her Mommy had a cold, that she was sleeping in a special room for rest. She nodded and held up her stuffed rabbit. "She can borrow this," she said. "It helps with dreams." I took from her hand. It was soft and worn. I wanted to scream. The compound began to break apart. Factions formed. One group seized the kitchen and refused to distribute rations unless Dr. Klein stepped down. Another took control of the generator shack and demanded armed leadership. 3 guards walked out the front gate and never returned. The last nurse, Nico, barricaded the med bay and refused entry to anyone without clearance. A little girl died in the hallway. No one came to move the body for 3 hours. It was time. On the night of day 34, I took Abby from her room. She didn't ask questions, just curled up in the sling against my chest as I donned our suits and strapped on the filtration hoods. I left a note for Dr. Klein and another for Lena, though I knew she'd never read it. Then we slipped into the service tunnel behind the rec hall and vanished into the mountain. The world outside was worse than I remembered. Every branch sparkled. Every gust of wind whispered like broken glass. We moved fast. No lights. No rest. Abby slept most of the way, drugged lightly with the last of our sedation gel. She didn't cough. She didn't stir. I hoped that meant she was still clean. We made it through the tunnels in just under 14 hours. Half-starved, frostbitten. One of the tunnel exits had caved in, and I had to dig with my hands through half-frozen ash. But we made it. We emerged near an old ranger station on the other side of the ridge, abandoned but intact. Solar panels, rain catchers, a radio tower, and air filters. Not many, but new, unused, still sealed in plastic. I carried Abby inside and collapsed on the floor. And for the first time in 34 days, I let myself cry. It's been 6 weeks since we left the compound. Sometimes I wonder if it's still there, if the people inside made it, if Lena made it. But I can't bring myself to check. The air is quieter here, but it's not clean. The ranger station sits high on a granite bluff, halfway up a canyon slope. It's sheltered from the worst of the winds. Trees block the swirling eddies of airborne glass. Solar power gives us just enough electricity to keep the filters running 4 hours a day. We time those hours carefully. Breathe too much when the system's down and your lungs start to burn. Abby calls it the sky fire. When she sees the glittering haze outside, she says, "The fire's still out there." I don't correct her, because she's not wrong. The radio crackles with static most days. I pick up fragments sometimes, short bursts from Colorado or Texas. Once I heard a garbled voice from an orbiting satellite, automated, repeating coordinates and warning of unsustainable fallout. But no help is coming. We're on our own. I ration food by hand. Canned peaches, lentils, powdered milk, 100 MREs stored in rusted lockers. There's a spring about 3 miles down the slope. I only go when it rains. The runoff is safer. Heavier particles washed away. But even then, I triple filter every drop. We haven't coughed. Not yet. Abby's hair has grown longer. She draws now, pictures of the compound, of her mother. She always draws Lena with a crown of flowers. I ask her why. She's a forest queen, she says. She lives under the ground and watches the rabbits. Some nights, she falls asleep asking when we'll go find her. I lie and say soon. I listen to Lena's recordings when Abby sleeps. I try to limit myself, 1 message a week. But sometimes I cave. Sometimes I listen to 5 in a row, hunched over the speaker with my eyes closed, pretending she's in the next room. In the 6th message, she sings a lullaby. Her voice cracks halfway through. In the 7th, she says, "I hope you forgive me one day. I just couldn't let you see me disappear." In the 8th, she cries, "I don't make it past that one. Not yet. The sky's worse now than ever." Windstorms rip through the canyon, glass particles screaming like nails across the windows. The sunlight is weaker, filtered red through dust and crystal. At night, everything glows faintly green from atmospheric ionization. I read a report that said the asteroid carried trace elements of trinitite and lunar ejecta, that the impact kicked a blanket of exotic minerals high into the stratosphere. They called it the Death Shimmer, a beautiful name for something that can kill you with a breath. I've seen things in the distance. Lights, flares. Sometimes I think it's other survivors. Sometimes I think it's the bandits. Or worse. But they've never come close. Not yet. 2 weeks ago, a raven landed on our roof. I don't know how it survived. It pecked at the metal and cawed once, then flew away. I stared at it through the window for almost an hour. It felt like a sign. I don't know what kind. Abby found a dog. Or maybe it found her. It was thin, shaking, and coated in glass dust, but alive. I don't know how it was still breathing. She named him Ash. We bathed him in triple-filtered water. I burned the rags afterward. He hasn't coughed either. He sleeps at her feet now. Sometimes they dream at the same time. Sometimes they twitch together, as if seeing the same world. I've started rebuilding. There's a greenhouse kit in the storage shed, one of those prefab collapsible domes. I'm going to try to grow something. Not much. Just a few carrots, maybe beans. I don't know if the soil's still viable. I don't know if the sun's strong enough anymore. But I have to try. I have to believe there's still life here. Abby's stronger now. She doesn't ask about the compound anymore. She doesn't ask when the glass rain will stop. She just lives. She sings. She builds. She teaches Ash how to shake paws. She believes in the world. And for now, that's enough. I keep one of Lena's drawings by the bed. She drew it in the early days, before the filters failed, before the fractures in the compound started showing. It's a picture of the three of us, holding hands, smiling under a blue sky. No masks, no blood, no fire. Just the world as it used to be. Or maybe how it could be again. I don't know how long we'll survive. A year, a decade, a generation, if we're lucky. But I do know this. The asteroid didn't kill the world. It just changed it. And we're still here. Breathing carefully. Walking softly. Waiting for the day when the sky finally clears.